And now we're going to have our next speaker, Tal Hartuff. Tal was stabbed and left for dead in 2010 by Islamic terrorists. She survived, and she has made it her mission to fight global terrorism. She's an Israeli Jewish tour guide, an artist, a musician, and a motivational speaker. She was brutally attacked with a machete, and she watched her friend be slaughtered in front of her eyes. Okay, I remember the story in the media and always wondered, how does someone, manage to get out and survive? And you watch someone being hacked in front of you. She speaks to audiences all over the world. She speaks to the United Nations and trying to get foreign aid and rewards to murderers. You know how they pay. You get paid, I believe, like just the murderers for the D family will get about $1 million for their efforts. It is crazy. So hopefully you'll be successful, Tal. Together with a Muslim Palestinian friend, she created the Yellow Brick Road, which is an educational project in a Palestinian refugee camp that teaches children at risk about grooming, emotional intelligence, empathy, and courage. Tal's actions led to the capture of her assailants. She's been recognized by the Israeli police and security forces. And there was a documentary made about her called The Black Forest Broadcast in 2018. And there was under her former name of Kay Wilson. She published The Rage Less Traveled, an award-winning memoir that I highly recommend people read. Tal, thank you for coming to share your story.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Jody. Thank you, Sarah. Never a pleasure, always a privilege. So I'll take you back to that day. I haven't spoken about this since I changed my name 3 years ago, but all for a good cause. I'd been working as a tour guide, and I was guiding a group of Christians in Poland about the Holocaust. And Christine Lucan of blessed memory was part of the group, and she caught my eye because I saw her in one of the extermination camps, and she was mumbling her way through the Kaddish in Aramaic. And I thought, that's really amazing, like a Christian woman saying Kaddish. We got to know each other a little. And I invited her to Israel for a quick weekend. She dutifully came in December 2010. And the day after she arrived on Shabbat, we went for a hike on the Israel National Trail in Israel proper. And we climb up, we leave the trail, go about 300 meters up to the hill to the viewpoint, which they took us to in guide school. And we're sitting on a rock and eating sunflower seeds. And from where we're sitting, something catches my eye, and I see two men in the bushes. And I could tell by the way they're dressed, they're Palestinians. I mean, I'd been in Israel already 26 years, and I didn't want them to see us. But one stands up and he asks in Hebrew with an Arab accent, Yesh lechem mayim, have you got any water? So I didn't want them to come close. I thought robbery, and I just said, oh, I wish, back in Hebrew, and they went away. And I was feeling uneasy, suspecting a robbery. And I didn't want to tell Christine, she doesn't know Hebrew or anything. So I just said, let's get back to the car. I took out my little penknife just in case they were going to come and get my bag. And she's behind me, and we're walking through the thicket, and I hear a scream. And as I turn around, one of them pounces on me, and I fall to the ground. And I'm struggling with him, and I managed to turn over my back, and he's kneading his way up with his legs on my chest. And with my little penknife, I managed to stab him in the nuts, but he's like bigger than me, and he takes my penknife, and we're standing there, and the other guy's got Christine, he's got a kitchen knife at her throat. And the one who has me takes out this machete, really a foot long, and it's serrated. And then begins this, it's such a dissonant half an hour where we're standing in the most beautiful place in Israel. You know, I can hear the birds, and it's a warm sun, and I can smell the pines, and we're being held at knife point. And they go through my bag and they find my Israeli ID. It's the old one. It had Jew on it, so it might as well have been a yellow star. So I tried negotiating, and I say we're both we're both Christians, and even though it had Jew, I hope they couldn't read. But nevertheless, time is ticking. They make a few phone calls. I can just make out they're calling for a car, arranging a car. And after half an hour, which is really an eternity, they take off my shoelaces and tie our hands behind our back. They gag us, they tear up Christine's fleece, gag us with that. He takes off my Magen David, my necklace, not this one, but like the Star of David. And so we're standing side by side, gag bound barefoot. And then they separate us by about 6 feet. And one pushes me on my knees, Allahu Akbar, and they start stabbing, and I fall to the ground, and he leans, I'm on my side, and he's leaning on me, and he's like plunging this machete into my side. And the only thing I could do was play dead, and I knew people die with their eyes open, so I kept my eyes open to fake death. And in front of me, I watched the other one just chop up Christine. And after 13 stab wounds, beatings, they leave. And I mean, I'm just like in a pool of blood, and then the ground vibrates, and they're coming back, and one turns me on my back, and now I'm looking up at this canopy of pines and a sunset, and the silhouette of his hand with this knife, it covers the sun. And I watch him plunge that knife into my chest, and it missed my heart. Eventually, I learned it missed my heart by 4 millimeters. They leave, assuming we're both dead. And I had one last mission in life, and that was to get up and die nearer where I parked the car. Excuse me. So after a great struggle, I managed to stand. I'm still tied up. And I turn my back on what's left of Christine and just slowly, gag bound barefoot. I'm trying to navigate where I am. Where is east? Where is south? Going through the forest. Everything's closing down. I've got ribs coming out of me. I didn't know it at the time, but my lung had collapsed. I've got vomit behind the gag. And somehow I walked for 25 minutes and I managed to find my way back to the car. There's a family there having a picnic. They called for the army. There's helicopter, police, ambulance. Anyway, I get to the hospital. Questioned by the police on my last legs, and Christine's body is found a few hours later. Now, what follows then is a blackout of press blackout for 6 weeks, and then suddenly, all in the news in Israel. I become the headlines because that little stab when I stabbed him in the nuts, that DNA, his DNA on my blood-soaked shirt, his DNA was on my sleeve, and it enabled them to apprehend the terrorists. So they were arrested. 10 months later, I'm in court. First time really that I meet Christine's parents. The survivor's guilt was beyond describable. And in the court, and this is really what people, if you forget everything else, you need to know this, and it's also in the movie, the documentary, the judges asked the terrorists, well, why did you murder an American Christian? And they said, without blinking an eye, they said, oh, we thought she was Jewish. So an American Christian was murdered because they assumed she was Jewish. And then what follows, I mean, they're sentenced. One gets 50 years for my attempted murder and the murder of Christine. And the other one, he'd murdered before. Oh, that's right. There was another terror attack 10 months before they attacked us. And because they were arrested, they confessed to the murder of Netta Blatz-Sorek as well. So after the court case, I talk about PTSD. And in terrible pain, I migrated between sofas for 3 years. I needed help for everything. getting up, going to the bathroom, having a shower, eating. Just the sheer humiliation of somebody who's so independent, of having to be dependent on people for absolutely everything. Physical pain 24/7, psychological torment. I never actually had nightmares because I think the reality was worse than the nightmare. Insomnia, chronic insomnia, not being able to tolerate noise in any shape or form, being very hypervigilant. Anyway, that's just the psychological fallout. I had 13 machete wounds, over 30 broken bones, lungs which had been pierced by ribs, splinters of bones, crushed sternum, broken shoulder blade, collapsed lung. I had something else I can't remember. Anyways, injured quite badly. So the months pass, or the years pass, and actually, Jody, I think you asked Yossi about the forgiveness issue, and this is one thing that I really had to deal with. And in the Talmud, there's an amazing piece of Jewish wisdom, and it says, "He who is kind to the cruel shall be cruel to the kind." And another thing I realized, that with any issue of forgiveness, there's two parties involved. There's the wrongdoer and the wronged. And for order there to be forgiveness, the wrongdoer needs to ask forgiveness from the wronged. And for that to happen, both parties have to be alive. And so the problem with murder, it is metaphysically unforgivable because the murdered are not there to extend forgiveness, should they wish to. So it's absolutely will always remain unforgivable. But I decided, I'm glad they're in jail. I hope there's a hell. I hope they rot in it. I hope they have a horrible time in jail. But I decided I cannot afford to live my life in hatred or fear of every Palestinian or Muslim. And one thing that happened that helps me do that, on the operating table, I remember the last words before I go under the anesthetic. It was from a Jewish surgeon to his colleague, and he says in Hebrew, "Muhammad, give me the knife." So it's an Arab surgeon who saved my life. And I realized that, it's not about somebody's ethnic identity. It's choice. It's absolutely choice of who we are and how we live our lives. And so what I decided to do for the following years was to take, on one hand, justice, on the other hand, mercy. Chesed v'tzedek, and the mercy would be, as you mentioned in the intro, to begin this little project to teach children in a refugee camp emotional, intelligence and courage, really, because they're groomed to murder Jews. And the other stream I took was to, as you mentioned also, to try and stop Western monies going to the Palestinian Authority. There was a medium amount of success with that. I worked with Palestinian Media Watch. Holland stopped the funding. The Taylor Force Act, not that I had anything to do with it, but I think there was different pressures from different groups. Yossi also mentioned it. And under President Trump, one of the first things that he did was stop the funding. I hope that will be a policy that's going to be renewed soon. So that's what I've been doing. And as concerning today, we talk about Remembrance Day. And in Hebrew, it's Yom HaZikaron Lechalalei Tzahal. What's Chalalei? Halal literally means space. It's emptiness. And not that my situation is worse, but just for the viewers, I want to give you another viewpoint. It's really not worse. It's simply different. What it's like to be me. Christine being a Christian, she's not buried here. I couldn't go to the funeral. I was in hospital. The first time I met her family was when they came to court. If I count the actual hours I'd spent with Christine by herself, it wasn't more than 40 hours. So for me, if I think of halal, which means vacant space, think of other people who've lost their loved ones. All right, what is grief? You have a context, right? You have a home. There's their space, their room, and the daily reminders that they're not there. The empty space is that they're not there in that physical contextual space. And I don't have that contextual space. I don't, like I said, I don't have a grave. I've never been to a home. I don't know her family well at all. And so there's this, and she's not my family. She was a friend, but I don't have that space of missing a family member. And I don't have the context of, missing Christine in that sense. So it's a very empty halal, it's a very empty, different kind of experience for me. And I don't have like the gibush, the togetherness of combat soldiers who could say, oh, we went through this together, we went through this. So that part for me has been very difficult and very, very lonely. So when it comes to Remembrance Day, and I'm glad to be here because help me remember Christine. I want you to remember Christine. She, a beautiful Christian lady who loved Israel, who prayed for us, the Jewish people. And I don't want her to be forgotten. Unfortunately, her fate was tied up with our people. So Remembrance Day for me is to obviously remember Christine. And as the Torah teaches us, it's remember Amalek. Okay, never forgive. People are incited to murder for the financial incentive and the anti-Semitism. Amalek is amongst us. And lastly, I'll finish with this. Not growing up religious, there's something about the attack that reminded me that I'm a Jew. And I'm thankful to be a Jew. And so, in fact, I'm so thankful about it. Look, I got a little tattoo years ago. And this, if I think about what it means to be Jewish, the word Jew comes from the word lodot, Yehudi, which means two things, really. One is to accept, acknowledge. And I acknowledge that when it comes to the murder of my friend, I see no rhyme or reason to death. I don't see a bigger picture. When terror attacks happen to other people, it's horrible, but I never say, why them, like I did for myself. So it's like there are things that happen in life that we don't have answers for, and I'm okay with that. I don't need to know the why, I need to know what can I do about it. So that's part of the word about being a Jew, is the acknowledgement, the acceptance that we don't have to know everything. And finally, the word to be a Jew, and this helps me, it means to be thankful. I'm not thankful for what happened, but somehow what has happened over the years, death has made me appreciate life much more. So this is why I got the tattoo, because I could be really moany and grumpy. And I put it here because if I try and sleep and I wake up and I feel sorry for myself, I don't want that. I want to cultivate a grateful heart. So I got the prayer we say in the morning. Well, not all morning, but we say in the morning when we open our eyes. In English, I give thanks to you, O living and eternal King, that in your compassion you've restored my soul unto me. Great is your faithfulness. So I finish it in Hebrew. Modani lefenecha, melech chai v'kayam, she'echsata bi nishmati b'chemla, rabba emunatecha. Thank you for letting me speak.
Tal, thank you for sharing your story. And I know that it's never easy to share, but the power of educating people and the power of sharing your story goes a long way. So we hope that your voice will be heard and your message be heard. I have a question. Are you okay if I ask you a couple of questions?
It depends what they are.
The fact that you were so severely injured and you said you walked 20 minutes. Now, I mean, you might have had your tour guide's orientation to be able to figure out directions and the sun, but how does someone so injured get that strength to walk 25 minutes until they could find help?
I think, first of all, it was over a mile. And I was amazed to realize I'd walked that far. I didn't think when I was walking, I didn't think for 1 minute I'd survive. All right. I was walking to my death. And it was kind of I wanted the last word. You know what I mean? It's like kind of screw you. You might have murdered me, but I'm going to choose my place of death. Even if I'd have managed to even die 1 inch away from where they determined. So it was like a stubbornness. And the other thing is, I think it's true for anybody when we have difficulties. If I'd have thought at that time, oh, you've got a mile to go, or it's all uphill, you're barefoot, you got only one lung, you got ribs coming out of you. If I'd have realized what was ahead, I would have given up. But instead of that, and I think there is a lesson here for everyone, without sounding preachy, I don't mean it like that, but that when there are difficulties in life, we take it one step at a time, literally one step at a time. We have a goal, but let's just take it one step at a time. And I think that's what happened with me. I was doing it one step at a time.
Oh, incredible. I admire so much the way you chose to deal with your post situation by justice and mercy, on one side advocating and lobbying and trying to, change the reality of terrorism. But on the other side, also, you said you volunteer in the Palestinian refugee camp. I'm curious.
No, I don't volunteer. I set up a little project with a friend. We do everything by WhatsApp. I've been there once, but it's dangerous, right? So
that's what I was going to ask you. I was going to try and understand how, and so do they know that there's a Jewish survivor behind it?
No, and obviously my friend does, but nobody. Apart from him, nobody needs to know. And I tell you why. And it's sad that they don't know. Maybe one day in a better world they will. But I wouldn't want them to know because it would put my friend at incredible risk. I wouldn't be at risk. I'm fine here in Mevaseret Zion, but he would probably be murdered for having this, what do they call it? Like normal relationship with Jews. And I don't want people to, nobody knows which refugee camp, nobody knows where it is. And that's the way it's going to stay for his sake.
Right. And hopefully the efforts that you guys put in will change the outcome at a sort of more grassroots level of what's happening out there with hatred.
I hope so, Jody. I don't know. I hope it will, but I don't know.
You changed your name. Was that connected to the terrorism, the publicity, or?
Yes, it was. Listen, I chose to be a very high-profile public speaker. It was very important for me that people would know about the funding of cold-blooded murderers. But I'm glad I did it. With that, I felt that it was like a process, right? I began to feel, one, that it was having a big cost on my mental health. Two, that I was only known for either being a victim or a survivor, and my whole world was that of terrorism and stopping funding. And you know what it was? I missed me. I just missed me. I began to miss me. Where have I gone? And Kay is such an extreme, unusual name, in Israel. And I thought, I need to give myself space. I don't want to live like this for the rest of my life. I feel I've done what I can. I wrote the book. I did a movie. I've spoken all over the world. I want to go back to art and music for a little bit of fun. I'm guiding in the Holocaust Museum. I'm starting to reclaim back territory. And so I wanted privacy. In the beginning, I wanted anonymity. And people would come up to me. I'm very recognizable in Israel. And they say, aren't you? I said, no, we look the same. Everybody thinks. And then I realized, I can't hide it. It is part of me. All right. But I didn't want it to be the be all and end all. So now I'm realizing there's a synthesis. So I don't need to hide. And I happily tell people I changed my name and why I changed my name. And I chose my name very carefully. First of all, I wanted it the same syllables as my old name. And I wanted for my first name a very biblical but modern name, Tal, the dew, the morning dew. And if you think about the morning dew, it's nourishing, it's consistent, it's invisible. And I want to be that to people. I want to be that little touch of kindness. You know, it's a reminder to me that I can't always bite people's head off. I want to look for that opportunity just to give somebody a call and say, how are you today? You know, just to be that unseen kindness. And I chose Tal Hartuff, which literally means mountain of goodness. Because, you know, in Judaism, if you're saved from death or whatever, or people often take another name, add a name, change their name. And there's been so many people inside and outside Israel, Jewish, Muslim, Christian, who've been so incredibly kind to me. And I wanted them all to become part of my name. And that's why I chose Hartuff, mountain of goodness. And I will say this, that, you know, there's so many cliches because we're all out of control, right? When something bad happens, we say the most clumsy things. And it's like one of the worst cliches is like time heals. Well, I got news for you. No, it doesn't. It does give perspective. It certainly gives perspective. Healing is a massive word, but I think what alleviates pain is not time, it's kindness. I think kindness is everything. Absolutely everything. That little extra thoughtfulness can go an enormous long way. And I want to be like that for other people. And I fail every single day, but I've got my goals.
Well, thank you for sharing this. And I think there was such a common theme from the survivors about bringing kindness into the world, as opposed to, and like it's the antidote to hatred, bottom line. And I think that, you know, you've shared that so poignantly with us. And we heard from all the survivors that you can overcome so much. And there is also just a resilience and a choice for life. So thank you for, again, sharing those messages. We really appreciate it. I know you've taken a break from speaking, so we're very glad to have heard your voice and your perspective. And we just wish you so much strength in your journey, because I'm sure it is a journey in every possible way. So thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to say a huge thank you to our partners. Firstly, to Sari Singer. Sari herself a survivor who started Strength to Strength and who brought all these incredible speakers for 2 days. If you missed some of the speakers from yesterday, you can get it on Facebook Live. Please share these links. Sari herself is a powerhouse who overcame so much challenges. And this is our 4th year of highlighting these stories that people should hear, so many lessons to learn. I also want to say, Stacey, can we put up the partners or the logos? A huge thank you to so many partners who made it possible to share this event, to share it with their communities. So we want to thank the organizations, Yad Olim, We Learn, By Israel, Pearls Cafe, Alinu, Migdal Or, Tel Aviv International Synagogue, Fast Pastilat, Kerem House, Route 613, Kedma, and I'm trying to see this on a screen, Santon Shul, Loving Wisely, The Base, Yad Lo'olim, Tikvot, and Shechadash and Emek. All of you are great partners, and we thank you for your support, and thank you for helping us get the word out. We would love you to support JSNY, jsny.com, the organization behind this. We're a volunteer-driven organization, and I thank the people who helped me today to make this happen. We run many programs for young professionals, singles, Olim, Israelis, as well in the US. And part of our goal is to connect people to Judaism, to their heritage, to their stories, and to real stories like we heard today. We are going to conclude this program with the singing of Hatikvah. And in Israel, we transition from one of the saddest days to a day where we celebrate the founding of the State of Israel. Israelis are famous for mourning, for remembering, and then for partying. So we will transition. So we will end with Hatikva, and thank you, everyone.